There is a girl named Tang Ruan Ruan in the Agricultural Science Academy, with long legs, thin waist, and a sweet voice. In order not to go to the countryside, she gave up her composure and went to flirt with the research experts in the neighboring research institute. Watching the certificate being obtained, I realized that I had flirted with the wrong person. Luo Zhaoyao rested at the cousin's house of a research expert because he injured his leg. As a result, a little girl secretly brought him delicious food every day and helped him treat his leg injury. Finally, he nestled in his arms and begged for a kiss. Every time he tried his best to restrain himself, afraid that the little girl would find out that he was not his cousin. After falling off his horse, Luo Zhaoyao released his true nature and held him in his arms, saying, "Didn't he like me kissing you? How about kissing enough now?" Positive energy, sweet pet, keywords of the novel. In the era of Rebirth, the lucky wife is both wild and flirtatious without pop-ups. In the era of Rebirth, the lucky wife is both wild and flirtatious. Download the full text. In the era of Rebirth, the lucky wife is both wild and flirtatious. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Beauty Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Beauty Plan. In 1968, in the innermost courtyard of Dongshan Academy of Agricultural Sciences, two little girls were lying on the bed chatting. "Ruan Ruan, have you really made up your mind? Are you really going to the countryside?" The short-haired girl tugged at Tang Ruan Ruan's big braid and asked. It has been a day since Tang Ruan Ruan was reborn. In her previous life, she had just gone to the countryside when she was entangled and killed by a scoundrel. At this moment, when she heard her good friend's question, she immediately refused. "No, I will definitely not go to the countryside. The policy has been implemented, and all children of public officials and those over 19 years old after graduating from high school must go to the countryside to set an example. Tang Ruan Ruan, who is about to turn 19 in just 1 month, must decide whether to comply with the arrangements. Tang Ruan Ruan has been well protected by her family since birth. She is the daughter of her parents and has 4 brothers who have already started a family. Due to the significant age difference, several brothers treat her as their daughter's pet and have never suffered, resulting in her being very simple in personality. For this matter, my mother is almost crying blind and unreasonably wants my father to use his power for personal gain to keep her daughter. But in the current environment, even if her father has intentions, there is nothing he can do, let alone a few brothers who cannot be contacted at all due to certain reasons. There is only one way she doesn't want to go to the countryside: find a man to marry. I suddenly recalled the voice I heard before my death in my mind. Once I die, there's nothing left. The voice was very cold, but it was her only redemption after death. Her subordinates realized they wanted to grab the Bodhi bead on their wrist. This is what the other party retrieved from a scoundrel and put back on her wrist. However, it wasn't until she touched an empty space that she realized that Bodhisattva had already integrated into her body after her rebirth, forming a space. Short-haired girl Su Xiu'er was startled by Tang Ruan Ruan's intense reaction and quickly asked, "Do you really want to get married? Do you have a suitable partner?" Tang Ruan Ruan pursed her lips. She did. After being reborn, she first cried while holding her parents, then began screening suitable candidates and finally locked in a man from the neighboring courtyard. Originally, the elders of the two families had arranged a doll marriage when they were young, but as they grew older, they stopped mentioning it. However, Tang Ruan Ruan learned from his mother that the doll marriage partner is now working in a research institute and has strong abilities. The key is that she is a good person. If she marries him, she will definitely be able to protect her. Do you know Luo Zhaoyao from the research institute? Can you help me inquire about his situation? I am planning to follow my grandfather's arrangement to marry this child. Tang Ruan Ruan's gaze was firm. Instead of going to the countryside and being killed, it was better to fight hard and take care of this doll's biological partner. Although it's only 1 month, she worked hard and shouldn't have a problem. Su Xiu'er almost choked and looked at her in shock. not expecting her best friend to say such bold words. Are you really playing? She still doesn't believe that Tang Ruan Ruan, who is like a well-behaved woman, would pursue a man. Tang Ruan Ruan didn't want to die early. She still had to accompany her parents, so she nodded heavily and said, "Can you help me or not?" Su Xiu'er couldn't bear Tang Ruan Ruan's coquettishness the most. The other party was already good-looking and had a good voice. If it weren't for Tang Jiajian's refusal to allow her daughter to sing, she would be a masterpiece in the theater now. Help, I must help. I will definitely help you. How about I go and inquire about Luo Zhaoyang's situation for you now? Su Xiu'er wouldn't refuse, she got out of bed and ran away. After seeing off the person, Tang Ruan Ruan tightly clenched her small fist and secretly swore that she would never repeat the old path of the previous life in this life. She wanted to become stronger, protect herself, and also protect her family. Not long after, Su Xiu'er ran over to tell her the news of Luo Zhaoyao. Although the two courtyards were very close, Tang Ruan Ruan and Ruan Ruan were taken care of by their family too well and had never seen this doll's biological partner. Fortunately, Su Xiu'er was well informed and helped her find out. You are a super talented child. You were specially recruited into a research group and usually work in a research institute, so you can't even see him. However, I heard that he recently injured his leg and is resting at home. You will definitely be able to see people when you go there. Moreover, his parents are out of town for research and are not at home. It's really God's helping you. Su Xiu'er was even more excited than she was when she went to battle, and she planned many versions for Tang Ruan Ruan. In the end, the two decided to meet under the guise of visiting. If it doesn't succeed once, I will send tonic diet or something for the reason of visiting the doctor again. It's a big deal that the overlord will be tough. I don't believe that any man can refuse the attack of Tang Ruan Ruan, such a great beauty. After the plan is finalized, it is necessary to personally visit the target person. Su Xiu'er couldn't help with this matter, she could only rely on Tang Ruan Ruan herself. After seeing off her friend, Tang Ruan Ruan opened her wardrobe and took out all the clothes inside to try them on. Unfortunately, they were too conservative. She knew her strengths were her large chest, thin waist, and long legs, but these clothes were all bulky and couldn't highlight her strengths. Looking at the white and red face in the mirror, as well as her busy mother in the kitchen, she couldn't back down. She carefully selected a navy blue dress and quietly took it to the sewing machine in her mother's room. She took a deep breath, picked up scissors, and quickly cut off a piece of her waist. She changed the collar to a V-neck, put it on, and skillfully operated the sewing machine. Soon, a dress that highlighted her waist was ready. Tang Ruan Ruan, like a thief, put away his clothes, ran into the room, closed the door, and put on the newly modified dress. Standing in front of the mirror, my face couldn't help but turn red. She felt a bit ashamed, her plump waist was highlighted, her long legs were clearly outlined because the skirt was close to her body, and the V-neck above could also see a fair curve, which was not deep but made people couldn't help but imagine. She pinched her waist and turned around, determined to pursue the next beauty trick. That man, she must take it. Tang Ruan Ruan put on a windbreaker outside and put the old mother's chicken soup her mother made into a lunchbox. She took a deep breath and went to the neighboring courtyard. At this moment, Luo Zhaoyao, who was being remembered by Tang Ruan Ruan, shouted at his cousin lying on the sofa, "Are you not going to die? Don't you tell me such a big thing. Is it decent to hide here with me?" Luo Zhaoyao shrugged and said, "What's the problem? It's just that I can't walk anymore. I'm not even afraid. What are you worried about? Aren't you keeping this confidential? I happen to impersonate you here, isn't it good to deceive people? Let's go quickly, the train will leave soon." Luo Zhaoyao was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He yelled, "I have already asked Aunt Huang to bring you food. You are well healed, and I will take care of you when I come back. After finishing speaking, I had to hurry out with my briefcase, but as soon as I left the alley, I almost ran into a girl. The two of them passed by in the wrong direction, and Tang Ruan Ruan was not even aware that the other person was the target of her strategy. Tang Ruan Ruan took a deep breath, and as soon as he pushed open the door of the Luo family, he saw a tall man slashing at his leg. We have opened a new book, please support us. End of this chapter. Is it okay to marry me in chapter 2? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is it okay to marry me in chapter 2? Tang Ruan Ruan's mind was filled with only one image, her skin being cut by the cold blade, blood rushing out, and the particularly glaring sight made her involuntarily remember the scene before her death in her previous life. Subconsciously, she rushed forward to press down on the wound. Are you crazy? It's just a leg injury, just treat it well. Why do you underestimate yourself? Her voice trembled as she pressed her hands on the wound on the man's thigh, half kneeling on the ground. Because of fear, he didn't even notice that the strap on his windbreaker had loosened, revealing the dress she was wearing inside. The fair curve unpreparedly rushed into Luo Zhaoyao's eyes, and he instinctively turned his head, his ears slightly red. The legs, which were originally devoid of any sensation, were suddenly held down by someone. He thought he would throw the person out, but for some reason, he strangely didn't do so when he saw the hint of resentment in the other person's eyes. On the contrary, he tilted his head to look at her, his eyes calm and calm. Tang Ruan Ruan's eyes were covered in wounds. She looked around and didn't see the medicine box. She guessed that there might not be one at home, so she took out her windbreaker bag and tied it above the wound. Stop the other person's blood first, and it wasn't long until she saw that the blood had decreased, that she breathed a sigh of relief and got up to run outside. I'm going to buy medicine, please don't move around. Her voice was still trembling, but very firm. Luo Zhaoyao really didn't know who this person was, but he couldn't see her crying, so he reached out and grabbed her wrist. There's a medicine box under the coffee table, he said. The magnetic bass sounded, making Tang Ruan Ruan couldn't help but be clever, feeling that his ears couldn't bear it, and the current spread throughout his body. She foolishly glanced at Luo Zhaoyao before realizing it and hurriedly went to get the medicine box. I opened it and took a look. Fortunately, there was iodine and hemostatic powder. Tang Ruan Ruan carefully dipped cotton in iodine to disinfect the man, then sprinkled hemostatic powder and wrapped it with gauze. She was very serious throughout the entire process, completely unaware that the position of her bandage was a bit difficult to describe. After she finished handling it, she took a breath and saw the fabric on the man's leg that she had torn off. Her face suddenly turned red, and this position was only one palm away from the base of his thigh. She opened her mouth to explain, but didn't know how to speak. The man didn't say a word throughout, calm as if it wasn't his leg. After waiting for a long time without Tang Ruan Ruan speaking, Luo Zhaoyao had to speak up and ask, "Who are you?" "Your object." After blurting it out, Tang Ruan Ruan realized what she had said and suddenly turned around, feeling like she didn't want to be human anymore. Isn't she too reserved? But if she runs away now, she will go to the countryside in a month. She doesn't want to. Tang Ruan Ruan clenched her fists to provide psychological support for herself, but she didn't know that she had just taken off her windbreaker for the convenience of dressing her wound. She wrapped her body in a tight dress, and because she turned her back, her curves were exposed, perfectly presenting her good figure. Even if Luo Zhaoyao is sitting in a wheelchair, it does not prevent him from seeing this curve. He couldn't help but cough lightly and pretended not to go too far. This was the first time he had felt a bit uncomfortable with a woman. The sound of a light cough woke Tang Ruan Ruan up, and she quickly said, "Don't misunderstand. My name is Tang Ruan Ruan, and there is a baby kiss between the two of us. Do you know?" Luo Zhaoyao didn't know where to go, he simply shook his head. Tang Ruan Ruan speculated that he might not know, fearing that he would drive him away. He continued to explain, "It was arranged between your grandfather and my grandfather. However, there hasn't been much interaction between the two families in earlier years, and we haven't seen each other. Grandpa definitely hasn't told you about it, but I'm not talking nonsense. If you don't believe me, just ask your mother. Luo Zhaoyao frowned and said, "Do you know who I am?" Tang Ruan Ruan nodded and said, "Before I came, I asked my mother and she said your name is Luo Zhaoyao. Have you never met me?" Luo Zhaoyao thought Tang Ruan Ruan was referring to him, but quickly realized that she was referring to her cousin. Their names and voices were very similar and often mispronounced. The first time we meet, it doesn't stop us from talking about a partner. I sincerely want to talk about a partner for you, and I don't reject doll kiss. Because she was anxious, she instinctively squatted down and grabbed Luo Zhaoyao's hand, her eyes full of determination. Luo Zhaoyao opened his mouth and wanted to say that he had mistaken the person, but when he turned his head, he thought about what he would do if his cousin had ulterior motives to try him out. Her eyes couldn't help but become cold, trying to tell something from her face. I know it's hard for you to believe it, but I really want to talk to you about a partner. I've heard that your legs can't walk anymore, and I won't despise you. If you don't believe me, I can swear never to divorce for the rest of my life. She just wants to get married and not go to the countryside, it doesn't matter if she doesn't have a husband and wife. Two fair little hands held his big hand, and Luo Zhaoyao's subconscious was not to lament how soft his fingers were, but to lament how long and slender his fingers were. If you learn to play the piano, you should have great talent. His gaze was too direct, and Tang Ruan Ruan finally realized that he instinctively wanted to shrink back. However, he was afraid that he would miss this opportunity and not have another one. He blushed and didn't let go. He even shook slightly and said, "What I said is true. Do you believe me, okay?" The soft and coquettish voice with a touch of flattery instantly entered his ears, making him involuntarily shake off his small hands. "Sorry, we are advocating for freedom of marriage now, and child relatives are not counted. The cold sound was like a bucket of ice water pouring down, and Tang Ruan Ruan's eyes turned red. She thought that Luo Zhaoyao would refuse, but when he really refused, despair still couldn't help but emerge from her whole body. "Do you already have a partner?" Her expression was so pitiful, Luo Zhaoyao instinctively said, "No." "Do you have anyone you like?" "No." "How about you marry me, ? If time could be turned back, Tang Ruan 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 probably wouldn't have the courage to do it again, but by now she had already spoken, so there was no room for retreat. "Will you marry me? I can wash clothes, cook, and serve people. Even if you can't walk anymore, I'll be with you. As long as you marry me, okay?" In her watery eyes, there were all prayers, as if the continuation of her life was to marry someone. Luo Zhaoyao was not afraid of being tricked by beauties, but the woman's tears made him feel uncomfortable. However, he was not Luo Zhaoyao and could not agree to such a thing. Besides, he has no understanding of Tang Ruan Ruan at all. Tang Ruan Ruan kept an eye on Luo Zhaoyao. Judging from his expression, she knew she wouldn't agree, but she didn't want to hear a rejection. When he opened his mouth to refuse, she quickly reached out and covered his mouth with a devilish gesture. Stuff Luo Zhaoyao's refusal in his mouth. Not pushing people away immediately, but instead thinking. Hands are quite soft. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Then I Kiss You. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Then I Kiss You. Due to the close proximity of the two, as Tang Ruan Ruan spoke, his breath would brush Luo Zhaoyao's eyes, causing his long eyelashes to tremble. The vibration was not significant, but it made him feel a different feeling passing through the roots of his eyelashes to his body. It seemed that he was completely affected by this vibration, and he didn't immediately pull his hand off. His eyebrows furrowed slightly, but it wasn't disgust. The first time Tang Ruan Ruan looked at a man so closely, he was not afraid, but was attracted by his light brown pupils. At this moment, a ray of sunlight outside the window shone through and fell into Luo Zhaoyao's eyes, refracting scattered light, like diamonds, making people attracted. Fortunately, she was only momentarily stunned and quickly adjusted. Her face was still slightly red, but she knew that there was only one chance. She worked hard to calm her shyness and speak out the persuasion reasons she had already thought of. "Marry me, you won't lose out." Tang Ruan Ruan spoke confidently. She just realized that Luo Zhaoyao doesn't seem to like girls who cry, so she can actually change. As she was about to lose control of her seductive gaze, someone tapped the back of her hand. Tang Ruan Ruan was so shocked by this electric sensation that she almost couldn't let out her breath. Fortunately, she quickly adjusted and pretended not to take her hand back. Luo Zhaoyao, who had gained freedom of speech, still had some regrets. He didn't dislike that touch just now. "Let's talk about it, how can we avoid losses?" A cold voice sounded, and the sound made her ears tingle. Instinctively, she wanted to rub her ears, but fortunately, she stopped in time. "I study nursing and can take care of you," Tang Ruan Ruan said without any affectation, directly highlighting the most advantageous point. Luo Zhaoyao looked at the woman half squatting in front of him, her crescent eyes curved, seemingly the most pure and lovely, but they were tinged with a blush at the end of those eyes, which captivated his soul. If it weren't for his good self-control, he would have wanted to wipe away that blush with his hands. Tang Ruan Ruan saw that Luo Zhaoyao was silent and leaned in front of him. Both of them had noses less than 2 centimeters long, and their exhaled breath intertwined. Luo Zhaoyao had never been so close to a member of the opposite sex before. A sweet and fragrant aura rushed over her face, especially the curved red lips in front of her. It was evident that she had carefully applied lipstick when going out, and even the lipstick had a strawberry flavor, which was very tempting and made people want to come over and taste its flavor. His gaze was uncontrollably fixed on the red lips, his fingers instinctively gripping the armrest of the tight wheelchair. "I am a paralytic, and my legs may never be able to walk." Luo Zhaoyao's gaze shifted away from his red lips and slowly fell onto Tang Ruan Ruan's pair of crescent eyes, with no surprise in his narrow phoenix eyes. Tang Ruan Ruan restrained his shyness and unconsciously held onto Luo Zhaoyao's knee with his hand. His fingers slowly moved up the knee, eventually landing near the wound he had just helped bandage. She placed her hands on the gauze and gently rubbed it, her voice becoming much softer involuntarily. "Without your legs, wouldn't you be a man?" Luo Zhaoyao's gaze suddenly became sharp, like a sharp sword piercing into Tang Ruan Ruan's eyes. But she kept smiling, her fingers even moving fearlessly towards the top of the wound, and finally landed at the root of her thigh, saying, "I want to marry you." "What does it have to do with your legs?" Luo Zhaoyao finally couldn't let her continue. He had never noticed a girl with such a pure appearance who was so bold. Didn't she know what she was doing? Grasping her slender wrist with both hands, Tang Ruan Ruan pushed the person out suddenly, and without any surprise, he fell to the ground. After Luo Zhaoyao finished pushing, he felt a bit regretful. His fingers couldn't help but clench, but he didn't try to save them. He just looked coldly at Tang Ruan Ruan. Tang Ruan Ruan instinctively wanted to fall to the ground, but quickly realized that she was here to collude with others. How could she accept her fate like this? Suppressing a shy mood, he forcefully turned the direction and threw himself into Luo Zhaoyao's arms, whether the force was wrong or not. Luo Zhaoyao reflexively grabbed the person. Tang Ruan Ruan's hand was held and unable to move, and his mouth almost touched the collarbone deep in Luo Zhaoyao's neck. Further up, you can see the pulsating carotid artery appearing in the field of vision. Tang Ruan Ruan looked up and slowly leaned in with a bewitching aura. Step by step, slowly approaching the place with the pulsation of life. Warm breathing sprayed onto the blue floating artery, beating with her breath. At some point, Tang Ruan Ruan's hand had already gained freedom. She lifted one hand and touched the nearby carotid artery. In an instant, an electric current swept through the artery, numb and tingling, making him grit his teeth tightly. Tang Ruan Ruan felt Luo Zhaoyao's instantly tense body, and the corners of his mouth curved. I thought to myself that even if Luo Zhaoyao is powerful, as long as she seduces with her heart, she cannot believe that she cannot succeed. Luo Zhaoyao slowly relaxed, his Adam's apple rolling, and he even chuckled lightly. With just one sound, the abdominal cavity vibrated, causing Tang Ruan Ruan, who was lying in his arms, to involuntarily follow suit. He actually laughed. Laughing so seductively. Tang Ruan Ruan is an invisible voice controller, and her voice perfectly resonates with her ideal voice. The seductive voice completely solidified her originally less determined seduction plan. For this voice, regardless of whether he is paralyzed or not, she wants to hook him up. It doesn't work for me to throw myself in the arms. Luo Zhaoyao leaned back on the wheelchair, his gaze sweeping over those eyes, as if waiting for her to escape in embarrassment. However, under his gaze, what he thought was a little white rabbit slowly leaned towards his collarbone and blew a soft breath. Although it only swept through the skin, without even stopping for a second, it was incredibly seductive. Luo Zhaoyao felt the sensation of every millisecond when his red lips swept over him, so soft. If he could kiss him, what kind of feeling would it be? He threw the person out directly. He wants to watch this woman run away crying, at least not to cause trouble for his cousin. But the little white rabbit not only didn't cry and feel aggrieved, but also cunningly blinked at him and said, "So what kind of way do you like? You say, I'll change." The heart-wrenching voice came from a person who was the purest and most pure, always feeling even more cunning than a little fox. Luo Zhaoyao. Tang Ruan Ruan supported his almost weak knee. What else does he want if his sincerity is not enough? Do we need to kiss it to succeed? Even if we give her twice as much thick skin, we won't be able to kiss her at first sight, right? I can't even imagine that you're saying you want to marry me. His voice was full of mockery, telling her straightforwardly how childish and clumsy her little movements were just now. Tang Ruan Ruan felt his whole heart beating wildly, his cheeks burning hot, and his ears dripping with blood. So I'll kiss you. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. WaWaWa Qin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. WaWaWa Qin. Luo Zhaoyao didn't move, his eyes narrowed slightly, but it was hard to see the expression inside. Tang Ruan Ruan's whole body was hot, but he didn't dare to move around. A man who has agreed cannot bear the trap of a beautiful woman. She has worked so hard, why hasn't Luo Zhaoyao let go? Is she not doing well enough? Or is she not beautiful enough? Or is her voice not sweet enough, not charming enough? Is it difficult to ask her to really show more sincerity? Should she follow his words and show some sincerity? As she was about to approach and kiss Luo Zhaoyao's lips, he extended his finger to cover the red lips in front of her. All the courage Tang Ruan Ruan had just mustered disappeared in an instant, and his eyes couldn't help but turn red. What is she doing? Do you really want to kiss this man who only met once? Those watery eyes were full of grievances, but they were even more seductive, causing Luo Zhaoyao to grit his back teeth tightly, afraid that he would lose control and soften his heart. Luo Zhaoyao not only did not soften his heart, but also pushed people away. Don't move around. There was a fiery tone in his voice, which frightened Tang Ruan Ruan and made him forget what he wanted to say, feeling extremely embarrassed. But to this extent, if she hadn't received a precise word from Luo Zhaoyao, how could she be willing? She tried to restrain her trembling voice, trying to lower her voice as low as possible to make her voice sound sweet and seductive. How about if you agree to be with me and I don't move around? Unfortunately, this voice did not reach the level that Tang Ruan Ruan thought was captivating, but rather trembled violently. Luo Zhaoyao finally understood that the woman in love is not a charming fox spirit, but a self-righteous little white rabbit. He sneered and his gaze towards Tang Ruan Ruan was filled with cold light. I don't have any plans to get married, don't waste your time. Tang Ruan Ruan's instantly stiff body shattered all plans. She couldn't help feeling a bit discouraged, as she didn't expect anyone to come up and agree. Tang Ruan Ruan got up from the ground and her gaze fell on his leg. Perhaps she accidentally touched his wound just now, and it turned out to be bleeding again. She disregarded Luo Zhaoyao's cold face and insisted on repackaging him with medicine. After Tang Ruan Ruan treated Luo Zhaoyao's wound, she couldn't help but feel remorseful. Even though she came to beg someone to marry her, how could she actually let them get hurt? Luo Zhaoyao looked at Tang Ruan Ruan's small expression of regret over there, and his mood surprisingly improved a lot in a strange way. Without the atmosphere just now, Tang Ruan Ruan felt embarrassed to continue her shameful beauty trick. She also understood that Luo Zhaoyao didn't even accept her tricks. Tang Ruan Ruan felt a sense of retreat in his heart, but he was also unwilling to accept it. Uncontrolled, one of his eyes secretly scrutinized Luo Zhaoyao. He didn't look like a scientific researcher, with three-dimensional facial features, tiger eyes, sword eyebrows, and especially those tight double eyelids. Moreover, his lip shape was really good, making one's blood boil at a glance. If I could marry such a person, even if it's a fake marriage, I would still feel good looking at it every day, right? He felt uneasy when Tang Ruan Ruan saw him and couldn't help but speak up. I'm not your fiancé, eh? The deliberately lowered voice perfectly pierced Tang Ruan Ruan's invisible voice control attribute, making her legs feel limp and unable to lift her feet to run out. But when she heard Luo Zhaoyao's words clearly, her heart turned sour. Tang Ruan Ruan took a deep breath and turned his head to look at Luo Zhaoyao. She came out with a slightly mischievous nasal voice and said, I know you don't want to marry me, but we really have a baby relationship. Does she not give up and wait to go to the countryside? She doesn't want it. Luo Zhaoyao tapped his fingers on the armrest of the wheelchair, his gaze falling on the gauze on his lap. He thought to himself, to be honest, why is she still crying? We don't have a baby kiss. When Tang Ruan Ruan regained his courage, Luo Zhaoyao indirectly retorted. He is impersonating his cousin, but can't he use his cousin's identity to contact someone else's intimate partner? It's difficult to explain to his cousin when the time comes. Tang Ruan Ruan only believed that it was an excuse casually made by Luo Zhaoyao due to his bad mood. Her big eyes looked at Luo Zhaoyao, wanting him to see her sincerity. For a long time, Luo Zhaoyao remained indifferent, but she didn't want to give up. She said, I know you don't want to talk about this matter now, so I'll go back first. I'll come back when you're not angry. Tang Ruan Ruan ran outside without waiting for Luo Zhaoyao to answer. After running out for a few steps, he suddenly stopped. She turned around and ran back, reaching out to embrace Luo Zhaoyao's neck. Before he could push himself out, he leaned in his ear and said, I will definitely prove it to you. I deserve it. After saying these words, she quickly grabbed the lunchbox and ran out, but when she reached the entrance of the courtyard, she ran back again. Luo Zhaoyao looked at her in confusion, waiting to see if she had any more tricks to play. He saw Tang Ruan Ruan standing in front of him panting and smiling brightly, saying, You are my fiancé, eh? It's no use denying it. I'll go home and cook delicious food for you. I'll make your 3 meals a day from now on. Tang Ruan Ruan quickly finished speaking and finally grabbed the windbreaker placed on the sofa. This time, it really disappeared into the small courtyard. Luo Zhaoyao tapped on the armrest and suddenly leaned back in the chair, laughing. He is a silly rabbit who can't recognize his fiancée, eh? Aunt Huang came over with a lunchbox and saw Luo Zhaoyao smile. She suspected that the child might have been paralyzed and had a bad brain. Why did you still laugh? Isn't this kid the one who likes to keep a straight face the most? This is not right. Tang Ruan Ruan ran back to his own house in one breath and saw Su Xiu'er sitting in the room, her eyes shining and her face gossiping as she hugged her, so excited that she wanted to jump up. Hurry up, what's going on? Did you do it? Did the tech guru get tricked by your beauty? Su Xiu'er wished she could sneak into Tang Ruan Ruan's mind and flip through all the records. It was really curious. Tang Ruan Ruan's cheeks turned red, and her ears could even bleed. Her eyes were sparkling with water, like a delicate flower that was about to be plucked and hidden. Su Xiu'er pointed to her face and jumped up excitedly. Did you say that you have such a lively and youthful heart? Tang Ruan Ruan saw that she was about to scream, so he quickly covered her mouth and whispered, "Don't talk nonsense, it's almost there." Su Xiu'er immediately pulled down her hand and quickly asked, "What did you almost mean? Is it because you, a beautiful woman like a flower, are standing in front of him trying to get along with him, and he's not willing?" As Tang Ruan Ruan's best friend, Su Xiu'er wished she could grab Luo Zhaoyang's head and shake it well, asking him what he was dissatisfied with about his own best friend. Tang Ruan Ruan blushed and shook her head. "I'm not really happy. We've only met for the first time, but I've made up my mind. I'll make a deal with this man." Su Xiu'er covered her mouth and shouted with an unbearable expression, "Is he still not a man? How dare he refuse to marry such a beautiful woman like you? Shouldn't he nod and agree immediately?" Tang Ruan Ruan's face blushed like sunset. "He's not such a frivolous person." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Soul Hooked. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Soul Hooked. Su Xiu'er was shocked by Tang Ruan Ruan's performance. She circled around Tang Ruan Ruan before looking at her with a frightened expression on her face. "I said, did you get possessed by a ghost? Is this being seduced by a male fairy? Isn't it true that tech giants are all unkempt with their beards and frantically focused on research, unable to even look at them? What do you think of her best friend's appearance? It's not right. I couldn't help but want to find someone to inquire about the situation of Luo Zhaoyao. Is it really a male fairy reincarnation?" Leaving Tang Ruan Ruan, who had not yet explained clearly, Su Xiu'er ran away again. She wanted to mobilize all the network of relationships and insisted on digging out Luo Zhaoyao. Tang Ruan Ruan didn't think much about calling Su Xiu'er back, but instead went to the kitchen. There is a mother at home who is super good at cooking, and Tang Ruan Ruan's cooking skills have also been somewhat cultivated. Fortunately, the family conditions are good, and the ingredients can still be prepared, so she quickly determined the recipe. She was staring at the clay pot, pondering in her mind how to make Luo Zhaoyao accept her, when she saw her mother return with a person behind her. Tang Ruan Ruan looked at the person and his face couldn't help but turn black. "Ruan Ruan, look who's here. Your Auntie Iping's brother Xiao Xian is here." Tang's mother let the people behind her out so that Tang Ruan Ruan could see the person coming clearly. Gu Zheshuan's gaze fell on Tang Ruan Ruan, and there was a stunning passing in his eyes. In Tang's mother's eyes, this expression was pleasing to see. She didn't want her daughter to go to the countryside, and getting married was the only way. She couldn't find a son-in-law on the spot, but fortunately, she had Gu Zheshuan, who was also the person she and her husband had finally chosen. The advantage was that they were familiar with each other and should be easy to talk to. "I originally planned to go on a blind date with my daughter today to prepare her mentally. If possible, we can discuss with the parents of the Gu family and marry Gu Zheshuan as soon as our daughter graduates. This way, we won't be forced to go to the countryside." Gu Zheshuan took the initiative to greet Tang Ruan Ruan, but in Tang Ruan Ruan's eyes, this was the beginning of her nightmare in her previous life. A scene came to mind as Su Xiu'er's angry voice said, "Gu Zheshuan and Hu Yu'er have been getting along long ago. 2 dog men and women conspired against you and deliberately waited until graduation to get a spot in the hospital, forcing you to go to the countryside. A scumbag, it's so disgusting. Ruan Ruan, you must not be able to let him succeed. Let's find my cousin now and let him marry you. I will definitely not let that dog man and woman conspire against you." In his previous life, Gu Zheshuan was just as reliable as he is now. However, Who could have imagined that he never liked himself, but his friend Hu Yuer? Who would have thought that when she graduated, Hu Yuer knelt in front of her with her stomach up and begged her to help the two of them? They are said to be in true love, and she and Gu Zheshuan are just a marriage arranged by their parents, not love. At that time, she was dizzy with anger and didn't want to make it difficult for Su Xiuer's cousin to do it, let alone be in the same city as these disgusting things. She simply chose to go up the mountains and down to the countryside. It also destined her to die early. Let's do it again. She definitely doesn't want to be disgusted by this scumbag. By this time, Gu Zheshuan should have been hooked up with Hu Yuer, and Hu Yuer already had a child in her belly. She doesn't want to be manipulated by this scumbag again. Tang Ruan Ruan took a deep breath to calm his mood and prevent himself from losing control and hitting others. Ruan Ruan, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell? Gu Zheshuan reached out to touch Tang Ruan Ruan's forehead. They had been playing since childhood, and this kind of thing was nothing at all. However, Tang Ruan Ruan tilted his head to avoid this touch. Gu Zheshuan didn't expect Tang Ruan Ruan to dodge and was still a bit stunned. Mom, why did you bring Gu Zheshuan back to our house? Yuer is looking for him everywhere, isn't this making Yuer anxious? Tang Ruan Ruan didn't even glance at Gu Zheshuan, just grabbed Tang Mu's arm and complained. Tang's mother couldn't help but become suspicious. How could she feel that her daughter's words were not right? As expected, she said, why did Yuer find Xiaoxian? Tang Ruan Ruan quickly said under Gu Zheshuan's somewhat nervous gaze, Mom, I just found out that Gu Zheshuan and Hu Yuer are talking to each other. Isn't it normal for Yuer to find him? Tang's mother's gaze suddenly fell on Gu Zheshuan, seeing his panicked gaze in an instant. Gu Zheshuan was about to explain, but Tang Ruan Ruan wouldn't give him a chance. Gu Zheshuan, don't deny it. Many of our classmates know about your partner. You said we've known each other since we were young and our relationship is good, but you kept it from me. It's really not interesting. Gu Zheshuan couldn't deny it at this moment because he realized that Tang Ruan Ruan truly knew about this matter. But he clearly concealed it very well, and no more than 3 people knew about it. How did Tang Ruan Ruan know? He had an awkward expression on his face. Graduation is coming soon, and he cannot go to college. It's not a bad thing to talk to someone, but when Tang Ruan Ruan finds out, Gu Zheshuan still feels a bit uneasy. Tang's mother is a newcomer, and it's hard to tell that her daughter doesn't have that kind of childlike affection towards Gu Zheshuan. She originally thought it was a fake marriage, but now that she has a partner, how could she consider him again? Ruan Ruan, speak well. It's a good thing for Xiaoxian to talk to someone. Your Aunt Li must be very happy. Look at what you're wearing, go back to the house and change. Since Gu Zheshuan was removed from the queue of reserve son.in.law, Tang Mu immediately changed her attitude. Her daughter is so beautiful, how can she be seen by others? Tang Ruan Ruan stuck out his tongue and immediately went back to the house to change clothes. Tang's mother moved her steps and blocked Gu Zheshuan's gaze towards Tang Ruan Ruan. Xiaoxian, since Yuer's child is looking for you, hurry up and take a look. If there's anything urgent, Auntie won't keep you. Gu Zheshuan wanted to explain, but saw that Tang's mother had already opened the door, and she still didn't ask about the engagement. He felt that he might never be able to marry Tang Ruan Ruan again. Standing outside the door, looking at the closed door, his heart suddenly felt a bit flustered, feeling like he had lost something very important. Tang Ruan Ruan, who was standing upstairs and watching this scene, had a cold expression in her eyes. Subconsciously, her fingers caressed the mark on her wrist. In this lifetime, she was blessed by heaven, not only able to be reborn, but also with such a magical existence, she would definitely not die so tragically. She was reborn and transformed into a space, but remained in a state of energy storage and could not be opened at all. Just now, Tang Ruan Ruan suddenly felt that the space could be opened. She couldn't wait to go in and see what the space looked like, but was frightened by the reminders about space in her mind. The names of the male and female supporting roles in this book are randomly selected, please do not substitute them. If you wear the book, you will not be responsible. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Furious Operation of Golden Fingers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Furious Operation of Golden Fingers. Please identify the following herbs in order to open the space. Tang Ruan Ruan looked at the line of words that appeared, as well as the lifelike 3D rotating grass below, and she became suspicious of her life. She studied nursing, and what she learned the most was how to inject, bandage and take care of patients. At most, she followed the doctor's requirements to treat the injured and assist the doctor in some basic work. But none of these have the ability to recognize herbs. Her eyes widened, her beautiful crescent eyes now turning into full moons. She poked at the illusory image with so much force that she wished to erase it. Is there a mistake? She only wants to be a nurse, not a doctor, and doesn't want to do such a responsible job. Can we change the terms? Even if you ask me to give you a needle, it's fine. She tried to reason with this mysterious space, but it was clear that the path was impassable. Because of the floating font, it is now even larger, and there is also a line of text below. Learning a craft is not at a disadvantage. She suspected that this space was mocking her. Because of her laziness. Poking at the illusory herb, it even swayed with her fingers. This is quite outrageous. In the end, she tried many ways but couldn't make the eerie space open and request changes. I can only give up wilting. I am holding a pen and paper to draw the shape of this herb and then go find her mother. Tang's mother is a doctor, and Tang's father is an expert at the Academy of Agricultural Sciences. It should be easy to find the herb, right? When she confidently picked up the herb she had drawn and found Tang Mu in the kitchen, who was helping her with the aftermath, she handed over her painting and looked at Tang Mu with a hopeful expression on her face. Mom, do you know what kind of herb this is? Although Tang's mother doted on her daughter very much, and even had some brainless affection, when she saw the herbs her daughter had painted, she still fell into a strange silence. It took a long time to squeeze out a smile. Ruan Ruan, I think if you add a few more leaves, I might recognize them. Tang Ruan Ruan didn't understand and stretched her head to look at her painting. She had tried her best to reproduce the image she had seen. Isn't it not clear enough? After frowning carefully for a while, he said, Mom, I feel like I'm already very vivid. At this moment, Tang's father came back from work and carried his coat into the kitchen. He glanced at the painting in Tang's mother's hand with a smile and said, What abstract painting is this? 3 leaves on top of a stick, is this trying to bring the tenacious vitality of this stick? Tang's mother hurriedly covered Tang's father's mouth, which was really speechless. Tang Ruan Ruan was caught in a life of doubt. Is her painting really rubbish? She spent half an hour carefully drawing, but in his father's mouth, there were 3 leaves on a stick. Autism to the point of running away directly. Tang's father was still confused. He pulled down his wife's hand that covered his mouth and whispered, Is this painted by Ruan Ruan? Tang Mu gave him a blank glance and said, What do you think you are in a hurry to evaluate? You don't know that Ruan Ruan has always been very serious in painting. Tang's father smiled bitterly. When it comes to Tang Ruan Ruan's paintings, this is simply something that the Tang family cannot understand. Tang's mother is a doctor, and painting flowers and plants is a basic skill. She gave birth to 4 sons before, and if she didn't understand, it was fine. When she gave birth to Tang Ruan Ruan, she almost devoted all her energy to the children. Tang Ruan Ruan is very intelligent and learns everything quickly, but in the field of medicine, he has almost mastered 9 out of 10 orifices and is completely ignorant. She can draw characters and landscapes, but she can't involve flowers and plants, which is different from her eyes and ordinary people's eyes. Even if it's a simple painting of leaves, she can do it with great effort, and it's particularly ferocious. Normal people can't even distinguish it, and it's just 2 dimensions from the reference object. This also led to the Tang family's parents and several sons firmly refusing to participate in the painting of flowers and plants in front of Tang Ruan Ruan. Anyway, Tang Ruan Ruan did not have to rely on flowers and plants to make a living. After many years, the girl rarely picked up a brush and drew an unknown tree branch, whether it was grass or flower, or some abstract branch. She was devastated by Tang Fu's evaluation. Tang Ruan Ruan was also aware of his own ailment. He was too anxious just now to know what it was, which led him to think of drawing it. Reality tells her that this space is definitely at odds with her, otherwise she might choose something wrong, but instead she has chosen an obstacle that she can hardly overcome. She grabbed her own hair and thumped on the bed. Even because of being too embarrassed and angry, I forgot that I still have something to do. When Tang Mu entered the room holding a compendium of materia medica, she was still tinkering. Tang's mother knew that her youngest daughter cherished face the most, so she smiled inwardly and patted her back, saying, "Ruan Ruan, are you looking for herbs?" Tang Ruan Ruan sat up, her face still tinged with embarrassment. Tang's mother didn't laugh at her daughter either, but handed her the compendium of materia medica. "You can search here, as long as it's not too special a herb, you can find some clues here." Tang Ruan Ruan looked at the brick-like book, which was not the original work of Li Shizhen, but was passed down by Tang's mother's family for many generations. On the basis of the original book, many supplements and annotations were made, and the most crucial point was that this book had hand-drawn pictures of each herb given by her grandfather. This is the most precious thing. If it weren't for Tang Ruan Ruan's drowsiness and dizziness when she saw this book, she probably would have used it as an enlightenment book since childhood. After many years, upon seeing this book again, Tang Ruan Ruan was filled with infinite emotions. "But as soon as I open it, I feel drowsy and yawn." Tang Ruan Ruan felt a bit embarrassed. Otherwise, how could she not study medicine but instead study nursing? This is the fundamental reason. Tang's mother followed her daughter's hair and said gently, "What's there? You can search slowly, you can always find it. Just don't look for so long." Putting down the book, Tang Mu left the room. Tang Ruan Ruan felt a headache as she looked at the compendium of materia medica beside her. Indeed, any rebirth is not without a cost. With a murmur, he obediently opened this brick-like book. After reading a page, I felt like yawning and my mind began to get confused. This book is definitely a hypnotic tool for Tang Ruan Ruan. Fortunately, this time she was not reading carefully, but flipping through all the pictures. Afraid of falling asleep again, her fingers caught up with the counting hand, and the speed was so fast. Finally, when she saw a picture that was similar to 1,000 pounds, her eyelids, which were heavier than 1,000 pounds, couldn't hold on. When he was about to fall asleep and die, Tang Ruan Ruan only had one thought in his mind. "You'd better be a very impressive presence in the space, otherwise I will definitely ignore you again." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. I Want Him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. I Want Him. Tang Ruan Ruan opened his eyes and met Tang Mu's worried gaze, somewhat bewildered. "Ruan Ruan, how are you doing? Are you still feeling unwell?" Her eyes were filled with heartache. Tang Ruan Ruan immediately shook his head. "Mom, I'm fine, I just get confused as soon as I read a book." Only Tang Ruan Ruan can speak so confidently, without fear of being scolded. Tang Mu laughed. "Who do you think you're following? You feel drowsy when you read a book, what's the point?" Tang Ruan Ruan hugged Tang Mu's arm and coquettishly said, "Anyway, I have you to raise me. What am I afraid of?" Talking about this matter, Tang's mother became unhappy again and looked at Tang Ruan Ruan with concern. "Ruan Ruan, what do you think? Do you have anyone you like? Mom can help you ask." Their carefully selected Gu Zheshuan is no longer useful, which makes Tang Mu very angry. Unexpectedly, looking at Gu Zheshuan with a good sense of propriety, he is actually a scumbag. Excluding Gu Zheshuan, Tang Mu still had many alternative options in her hands. As long as Tang Ruan Ruan nodded, she could immediately make an appointment. She was still screening in her mind when she heard Tang Ruan Ruan say, "Didn't my grandfather arrange a baby marriage for me? Why don't you consider him?" Tang's mother didn't expect Tang Ruan Ruan to mention this matter, and was stunned for a while before finally realizing it. Looking at her with a complicated expression, he said, "This matter is not reliable. It was just your grandfather and the old man of the Luo family joking back then, and we didn't make a serious decision. Over the years, we have almost no contact with the Luo family. When we mention this engagement coldly, they may not cooperate." Tang Ruan Ruan thought of Luo Zhaoyao's appearance and somewhat agreed with Tang Mu's analysis. "I really don't want to admit it. But at this moment, she has only one choice and cannot give up." Tang Ruan Ruan pulled his mother to sit next to him, and then he spoke out his plan. Tang's mother was shocked. One was that her daughter had such an idea, and the other was that she didn't expect her always well-behaved daughter to take the initiative to talk to the Luo family child about this matter. To be honest, since receiving the news that she had to go to the mountains and countryside, Tang's mother has been trying to find a way to keep her daughter. People like Gu Zheshuan have considered the Luo family, but they have only inquired about the Luo family's situation and have not made up their mind to talk about this child marriage with them. "You've seen that child before, how do you feel?" Tang's mother still cares about her daughter and is prepared to prioritize her thoughts. Tang Ruan Ruan thought of Luo Zhaoyao's face and his voice. Even if there was no sense of urgency to go to the countryside, she was more willing to be Luo Zhaoyao just by finding someone to talk to. At least the sound of Su breaking her leg can completely conquer her. Tang's mother still knew her daughter well, and when she saw the blush on her cheeks and the pair of autumn water eyes, she didn't understand anything. This girl has set her sights on a young man. That's good. If it's not a big deal, she and her husband will sacrifice their skin and ask the Luo family. Rest assured, Tang's mother went out to discuss this matter with her husband. Tang Ruan Ruan didn't know if her decision was right or not, but she didn't want to go to the countryside, leave her parents, and most importantly, didn't want Gu Zheshuan and Hu Yuer to succeed. She will never let her things go in her lifetime. Let's see what happens to those two scheming people. After breakfast, Tang Ruan 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 entered the kitchen and only then remembered that he had said yesterday that he was staring at the black chicken soup stewed on the stove. However, he was too excited and forgot about it later on. It was estimated that he would have to redo it. As soon as she entered the kitchen, she saw the chicken soup still simmering on the stove, and her face felt a little hot. Yesterday, she said she must cook chicken soup herself, but in the end, her mother helped her with the aftermath. Her face was hot, which made her feel a bit uncomfortable, but since she was preparing to hook up with Luo Zhaoyao, how could she not continue? So today she changed into a white shirt and navy blue polyester pants, with the same trench coat as yesterday. Standing in front of the mirror, she looked left and right, and even made her hair with a silk handkerchief. Fortunately, it's popular at this time to add something to her braids, otherwise she wouldn't dare to use this outfit. Finally, take out a small bottle of lipstick, which is peach red. Use your little thumb to lift it a little bit on your lips, and use your fingertips to feel dizzy. Looking at your instantly energetic self, you are very satisfied. She was about to leave with her food box, but when she reached the door, she didn't know what she was thinking. She went back to her room and stuffed the brick-thick compendium of Materia Medica into her handbag. Fortunately, this handbag was made by Tang's mother herself, and the wooden handle on it is very supportive, so no one will see such a book in her bag. You should know that books are not necessarily safe at this time, they can sometimes be fatal. She carefully walked out of the house with her lunchbox in hand, afraid that Tang's father might accidentally see her. She probably could go and beat Luo Zhaoyao up. In Tang's words, "I have never enjoyed the chicken soup of my daughter's filial piety a few times. How can I get a discount from an outsider?" Walking in the courtyard of the Academy of Agricultural Sciences, many acquaintances, including Tang Ruan and Ruan Ruan, greeted each other. Compared to the noisy places outside, this place is considered very peaceful, and everyone is still more enthusiastic. After leaving the Academy of Agricultural Sciences, Tang Ruan Ruan let out a breath, afraid that he might accidentally slip his tongue. Who knows if he might be told what to do by the 8 women in the courtyard. She had just entered the gate of the research institute when she saw the gatekeeper greeting her. "Are you a girl here again today?" Tang Ruan Ruan's face turned slightly red with displeasure, but she remained calm and said, "Yes, my mother asked me to come and see researcher Luo." The gatekeeper said happily, "Then go quickly. His parents are not at home recently, and it's quite boring to be alone." Tang Ruan Ruan obediently responded and then carried the food box in, while Huang Yi, who was held by the gatekeeper, was confused. "What do you mean when I say you're an old man? Why don't you let me go deliver food? I promised that kid Xiaoyang that he must take good care of his younger brother." The gatekeeper pulled Aunt Huang to sit down and said, "What do you want to give? You didn't see what the little girl was carrying. It's rare that Xiaoyao's child has a girl interested. Don't be scared and run away." Aunt Huang whispered, "But that girl said she's looking at the sunrise, right? Why did you make her and Xiaoyao a pair? Isn't this a scene of mixed feelings?" The gatekeeper hummed a tune and said with a contented expression, "You don't understand that, do you? If you think that girl has a crush on Xiaoyang, why did she never come before? But when Xiaoyao pretended to be Xiaoyang here, she came every day. You said you have such a brain. If it weren't for me, what would you do?" Aunt Huang was furious and kicked the old guy, thinking for a moment that this was really the case. Is it true that someone finally doesn't mind Xiaoyao, that kid? Is there a little cutie reading books? New book Pitfalls Shallow, Seeking Support. End of this chapter. How could this be possible in Chapter 8? You are listening at novelfull.audio. How could this be possible in Chapter 8? Tang Ruan Ruan walked to the door of Luo's house carrying a food box, but the door was not closed. She placed her hand on the door panel, really afraid that when she pushed it hard, she would see the scene from yesterday. After all, she had already asked her mother why Luo Zhaoyao would prick herself. What her mother told her at the time was, "It's easy to understand. Normal people lose their lower limb intuition and instinctively want to confirm this kind of thing. The so-called stabbing oneself with a knife may not necessarily be self-harm, but it may just be confirmation. However, this varies from person to person, and you need to observe." Tang's mother originally did not want to continue this unreliable child marriage with the Luo family. It was not that Luo Xiaoyang was not good, on the contrary, that child was too promising. They were not ordinary people and understood too well. The more powerful the scientific researchers, the more protected they were by the state. Tang Ruan Ruan was really too pure and easily couldn't bear it. Besides, the legs of the Luo family's child have not yet felt anything, so how is it good for their daughter's second half of life? But Tang Ruan Ruan insisted that they have always favored their daughter and thought that in the future, they would ask their parents to take good care of the child's health. As long as it is not completely disabled, it is still acceptable. Tang Ruan Ruan had no idea how much her decision had caused her father and mother a headache. She stood at the door, carefully pushed the door open, looked around, and confirmed that there was no one there before finally letting out a sigh of relief. As long as it's not as exciting as yesterday, she's okay. Is anyone at home? Her voice is very distinctive, not very soft, but it makes those who hear it feel very pleasant. Tang Ruan Ruan walked in without seeing the familiar figure, so she had to search for it herself. However, when she walked to the kitchen, she happened to see Luo Zhaoyao gesturing with a kitchen knife. The first thing that came to her mind was the way the two of them met yesterday, and she instinctively shouted, "No." She rushed over and snatched the kitchen knife from Luo Zhaoyao's hand, looking at him angrily. "What are you really doing? Your life is just not worth your nostalgia for. What are you trying to hurt yourself all day? Because of anger, Tang Ruan Ruan's face turned red. Luo Zhaoyao was originally planning to explain, but suddenly he didn't want to explain. He wanted to see what Tang Ruan Ruan could do. I saw Tang Ruan Ruan squatting down and gripping his wrist, saying seriously, "Your legs will definitely be fine. I study nursing, and even if your legs are not good, I will help you. Don't give up on yourself, okay?" The purity in her eyes made Luo Zhaoyao squint. He remembered the call from his cousin early in the morning, and couldn't help but re-examine Tang Ruan Ruan. Did this woman appear too coincidentally? And all the information about Tang Ruan Ruan this morning was placed in front of him, because it was too clean and made him accustomed to various privacy and dirty methods, which made him somewhat uncomfortable. I haven't given up on myself. Luo Zhaoyao looked at Tang Ruan Ruan's brainpower and pointed to the fruit on the chopping board, then pointed to the kitchen knife that Tang Ruan Ruan had just taken away. Tang Ruan Ruan looked at the fruit, then at the kitchen knife, and suddenly realized that Luo Zhaoyao didn't want to cut himself, he just wanted to cut the fruit. At that time, her face turned red into a sunset glow, which was really beautiful. She quickly stood up, tidied up her hair, and tried to conceal her discomfort. Turning his back, his face was almost twisted into a bitter melon face. It's simply embarrassing. How could she do such a thing? Just now, she seemed to have grabbed Luo Zhaoyao's arm. What would he think of himself? Do you think you are frivolous? If it weren't for Luo Zhaoyao coughing, she might have been able to brainstorm and disappear in place. She was pulled back to her senses by coughing, and her gaze fell on the food box she had placed on the table, as if she had found a savior. You probably haven't eaten yet. This is the Huangqi Wuji soup I made, which should be good for your body and replenish qi and blood. Luo Zhaoyao looked at the lunch box in Tang Ruan Ruan's hand and then at her face. Supplementing qi and blood. His voice remained cold, but it made Tang Ruan Ruan's ears tingle. Even if you know his voice is pleasant, listening to it once will make you even more uncontrollable. She really wants to listen to this voice every day, it's just too provocative. Maybe when she went to school, she was used to roast in her heart, so her expression hardly changed at this time. But she didn't know that her expression was so rich in Luo Zhaoyao's eyes. Due to work reasons, he has become accustomed to observing a person's micro-expressions to make adjustments, but the girl in front of him is as straightforward as a blank sheet of paper, able to see all the emotions on it clearly. He surprisingly finds it rare to relax. He had originally thought that if Tang Ruan Ruan came over today, he would tell her that a child's kiss is not worth it, and he is not Luo Zhaoyao either. However, early this morning, his cousin instructed him that his current situation was very dangerous and he must not expose that he had left the research institute. That's it, Luo Zhaoyao really wants to replace Luo Zhaoyao and stay at home. Yeah, you lost too much blood yesterday. I asked my mother and she said this soup can nourish qi and blood. You drink more, it's been staying up all night, and the bones are even crispy. Tang Ruan Ruan's voice is soft, and the ending is unconsciously a bit long and slightly upward, which is very catchy. Although she looked very innocent, she had an irresistible voice. Luo Zhaoyao didn't speak, and Tang Ruan Ruan didn't care either. She had already thought that chasing Luo Zhaoyao back would not be so easy, and she had long prepared to fight a protracted war. He opened the lunch box and placed it in Luo Zhaoyao's hand, then pushed him out of the kitchen. As for the fruit that Luo Zhaoyao was just about to cut, Tang Ruan Ruan thinks drinking chicken soup is good, and the fruit should be eaten in half an hour. Luo Zhaoyao, who was difficult to get close to, was pushed into the courtyard by Tang Ruan Ruan, and the warm sunlight shone on him, which was indeed somewhat comfortable. He held a spoon, but his gaze was fixed on Tang Ruan Ruan. She is indeed a bit nervous. You drink yours, I'll read for a while. To avoid embarrassment, Tang Ruan Ruan just ran into the book in his bag and used it as a shield. Luo Zhaoyao saw the name of the book, Compendium of Materia Medica, which is actually a very good book. Tang Ruan Ruan originally took out the book out of fear that Luo Zhaoyao would be uncomfortable. At this moment, she looked at the cover but hesitated. Her habit of dozing off while reading has never been ineffective. If she sleeps over after reading 2 pages, would Luo Zhaoyao think she is a hypocritical person? Bei Qi bit his lower lip, giving him a feeling of difficulty riding a tiger. After tilting her head to see the seemingly penetrating gaze of Luo Zhaoyao, she finally opened the book and carefully squinted her eyes at the content on it. After reading a page, she didn't feel sleepy. Those who didn't believe in evil carefully looked at the second page again, but still didn't yawn. On page 3, on page 4, on page 5, her speed grew faster and faster, but she didn't even doze off. Tang Ruan Ruan ran to the door with a book in his arms, not believing in evil. He opened the book with Luo Zhaoyao on his back, and then a yawn involuntarily appeared. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Seduces You. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Seduces You. Tang Ruan Ruan was shuttling back and forth between Luo Zhaoyao and the door holding a book, and finally she confirmed something. That's why she was reading medical books beside Luo Zhaoyao, not feeling sleepy at all, and her super strong memory was also restored. It's very cult. Her expression was really conflicted. Luo Zhaoyao couldn't even pretend that he couldn't see it. Do you still need to run while reading? Tang Ruan Ruan could hear the mockery in Luo Zhaoyao's tone, but she couldn't explain it either. She just looked at him with bright eyes. Do you know? You have a kind of magic. Luo Zhaoyao almost spat out the chicken soup he was supposed to take a sip of. Does he have magic? Why doesn't he know? Tang Ruan Ruan seemed to have not heard Luo Zhaoyao's reaction, clasping his hands together in a book and looking at him like a fairy. You are my medicine. Now Luo Zhaoyao really couldn't hold back. He sprayed. A mouthful of chicken soup sprayed in front of Tang Ruan Ruan. Fortunately, he changed lanes in time and did not spray on Tang Ruan Ruan. Tang Ruan Ruan was foolishly happy, not angry at all. Fortunately, he handed his handkerchief over with kindness. So grown up, can you even choke on soup? But there are no outsiders here, don't feel embarrassed, I won't laugh at you. She reached out to pat Luo Zhaoyao on the back and skillfully gave him a smooth back. She often does this job at home. You should know that there is a father, 4 brothers, and a few little nephews at home. They usually like to compete for favor in front of her, and this kind of comforting little gesture has formed an instinct in her. Luo Zhaoyao was slapped on the back by her, feeling a bit uncomfortable, but for some reason, he was always extremely sensitive to close contact. After seeing Tang Ruan Ruan, he did not develop any resistance. It's very strange. After a few strokes, Tang Ruan Ruan asked him to continue drinking chicken soup, while she took a stool and sat on it, leaning against Luo Zhaoyao's wheelchair, happily opening the book that was like a curse to her. She must find that 3D surround super disdainful herb this time. If the cheat that God gave her cannot be untied, she will stay up all night. I completely forgot about myself who slept so sweetly last night. Luo Zhaoyao thought that Tang Ruan Ruan was reading to gain his attention, but he didn't expect to see Tang Ruan Ruan reading with utmost seriousness. Tang Ruan Ruan kept muttering in his mouth, but the information was too fragmented for him to piece together the specific meaning. He drank some chicken soup without even realizing it. At this moment, Tang Ruan Ruan suddenly closed his book, stood up, and excitedly clenched his fists, waving them. It looks quite exciting. I knew it wasn't that special. She took small steps and became extremely excited. Luo Zhaoyao was studying what Tang Ruan Ruan wanted to do when her bright eyes filled his view. I declare that from today on, you will be my benefactor, Tang Ruan Ruan. It took Luo Zhaoyao half a day before he bent the corner of his mouth on one side and made an angry sound. It's that kind of disdainful look. Tang Ruan Ruan was indeed hit, but she is someone who aspires to marry Luo Zhaoyao, so she wouldn't give up easily. I can't tell you why you are my benefactor, but you should know that in the future, you will be the person I, Tang Ruan Ruan, will cover up. In this courtyard, I still have some say. Without giving Luo Zhaoyao a chance to speak, she ran to the kitchen and cut the fruits that Luo Zhaoyao had previously planned to cut. She then brought them to him and placed them on the nearby stone table. After putting away the lunchbox again, he suddenly remembered and asked, "Is chicken soup delicious?" Luo Zhaoyao. I just unknowingly drank all the chicken soup in the lunchbox. Yesterday he drank the chicken soup brought by the little girl, but today he finished it again, suspecting that he might have had his head lowered. For a moment, he wanted to completely drive Tang Ruan Ruan out and not replace his cousin to deal with her. But when my cousin found out about Tang Ruan Ruan, he shouted. "Luo Zhaoyao, if you dare to let her notice anything unusual, I'll tell Auntie that you're at my house." Threats are very effective. He is really afraid of his mother's crying skills, which can submerge the riverbank to a certain extent. "Do you want to bribe me with just a bowl of chicken soup?" His voice was not as sarcastic this time, but it wasn't much better either. Tang Ruan Ruan looked at the oily light at the corner of his mouth and suddenly smiled. "It's really not possible, then I'll make you bone soup tomorrow." Luo Zhaoyao was very speechless. Isn't this girl aware of the difficulty and retreating? He is so unfriendly. But he didn't know that in the eyes of Tang Ruan Ruan at this moment, he was like a Buddha-like existence that could completely save her from that strange illness. Even if Luo Zhaoyao said something even worse at this moment, she wouldn't leave. Tang Ruan Ruan held the book in her arms and thought of the herb she had just found, which had already unlocked the space. At this moment, the space was being unlocked, and she was not in such a hurry. "Do you know that? I found out my grandfather was really too kind to me. He even gave you to me as a partner. Do you know how happy I am?" Her new moon eyes were full of light, facing the sunlight. At this moment, there was light passing through her eyelashes, reflecting a rainbow-like color that fell into her pupils. At that moment, she was so beautiful that she was somewhat unreal. Luo Zhaoyao's mind was a bit confused, and for the first time he felt a strange emotion spreading in his heart. But he quickly suppressed it. "I'm not your object." His voice was tense and tense. Tang Ruan Ruan only thought that he didn't want to admit to being a child, and he didn't think too much. "I know, not yet. Just wait for you to marry me. I will work hard. Do you prefer gentleness, charm, or openness? Let's talk about it. I will try my best to do it." That little expression was full of eagerness to try, completely unaware of how shocking the world was with what he was saying. Luo Zhaoyao's gaze fell on the junction of her pure white shirt and slim pants, which was not enough for him to grip with his palms closed, making his throat a bit dry. "This waist is a bit too thin." Unfortunately, Tang Ruan Ruan unknowingly held a book and squeezed it against his chest, bending slightly, allowing him to see a glimmer of whiteness beneath his collarbone. "Don't try to seduce me, it's useless." This time his voice became even colder. Tang Ruan Ruan suddenly thought of a sentence in her mind, which was from a forbidden book she and Su Xiu'er were secretly flipping through under the covers, and it was also said by her favorite female writer. She made a slight modification and said, "I seduced you, what's your business?" "It's all my business anyway." Luo Zhaoyao's eyes suddenly emitted a cold light. Does this woman know what she's talking about? How could she be so bold? "It's not my business. What are you doing standing here?" He tightly grasped the armrest, his expression even more icy. Tang Ruan Ruan, however, did not notice and lowered his voice, whispering in his ear. "Seduce you. May I remind you which last sentence comes from what Ms. Zhang Ailing said? I love you, what's it to do with you? Even 1,000 monsters can't blame you. I just borrowed a little bit of meaning and made some modifications." Thank you for voting and opening the comments for me, little fairy. Bishin, please ask for collection and recommendation tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Malicious Hearts, Seeking Recommendation Tickets, Collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Malicious Hearts, Seeking Recommendation Tickets, Collection. I'm telling you, you're such a mysterious child. I've inquired about many people, but surprisingly, not many of them know what he looks like. Even if they have seen him before, they can't remember his appearance. Can he still use any deception? Su Xiao'er was gnawing on an apple, muttering incessantly. As soon as she turned her head, she saw Tang Ruan Ruan's face blushing like rosy clouds, and her eyes were sparkling with autumn water, particularly alluring. My dear, Tang Ruan Ruan, please restrain yourself. I am a woman, not a man. Don't flirt with me. She shouted before pulling Tang Ruan Ruan's mind back. What nonsense are you talking about? Where do I have it? It's you. Why did you come here at this time? Didn't your mother catch you studying? When Su Xiao'er was asked such a question by Tang Ruan Ruan, she let out a scream. The two of them are good friends and also attend a school. They are now facing the problem of going to the countryside after graduation. Fortunately, Su Xiao'er's mother has secured a job spot for her, which was obtained by her grandmother's contribution of a super antique outfit. She just wants to work as a junior nurse in a nursing home, but it's not the hospital they go to the most for nursing majors. There are all leading cadres there, and she needs to quickly train various etiquette and how to identify the identity of cadres. In short, just to prevent her from losing face, Su's mother also put in a lot of effort. She finally managed to sneak out and asked her best friend about the progress of the doll. Don't talk about this matter, it's too annoying. Tell me, how are you getting close to that doll? Isn't it particularly difficult to get close to the big shot? Can you handle it? Tang Ruan Ruan's face was a bit hot again. What happened at the Luo family at noon came to mind. At that time, she leaned over to Luo Zhaoyao's ear and said, I'm trying to seduce you. After these words, Luo Zhaoyao didn't react much. She couldn't bear it herself, grabbed her clothes, and ran away, even forgetting her lunchbox. Looking back now, she feels like she's too bold. Speak those shameless words. Following the principle of sharing something with her best friend, she told Su Xiao'er about it. Su Xiao'er's eyes widened, and she stopped eating the apple in her hand. Excitedly, she grabbed Tang Ruan Ruan's arm. How dare you do this? Even the big shots haven't been tamed by you. Tang Ruan Ruan sighed and collapsed on the bed. He didn't even move his eyebrows at that time. I feel like he had too much concentration and couldn't even lift it. Do you think my beauty trick was a failure? She felt like she couldn't understand why Luo Zhaoyao didn't react to her at all. Su Xiao'er snapped her fingers. Don't make such an early decision. If he doesn't have any feelings for you, why eat the chicken soup you sent over? When it comes to this matter, Tang Ruan Ruan is also curious. He said he didn't recognize WaWaWa, but he wasn't ruthless enough to kick her out. What exactly does it mean? Can you say he deliberately teased himself? The two of them hadn't figured it out yet when they heard Tang Mu calling her downstairs. Ruan Ruan, where is coming to find you? Su Xiao'er frowned. How did she come? Ruan Ruan, I can tell you, Hu Yu'er is not that simple. Don't be deceived by her. Tang Ruan Ruan obediently nodded and agreed. Su Xiao'er was extremely shocked. If in the past, she dared to say that Hu Yu'er was not good, and Tang Ruan Ruan would say that she was good. What's going on today? This is not right. Something is very wrong. Just as I was about to ask, I heard Tang Ruan Ruan say, after dealing with Hu Yu'er, I'll talk to you slowly. That's why Su Xiao'er didn't ask further. The two of them went downstairs and saw Hu Yu'er standing in the living room talking to Tang Mu. Tang's mother didn't have much objection to Hu Yuer at first. She just felt that this woman was a bit artificial, but her daughter liked her and she didn't say much. However, since she found out she was dating Gu Zheshuan, she hasn't had such a good attitude towards her, which would only be a polite gesture of face. She saw her daughter and Su Xiu'er coming down, so she went back to the house to busy herself with her own affairs and gave space to a few girls. Hu Yuer couldn't help but squint her eyes as she saw the clothes on Tang Ruan Ruan's body, gritting her teeth secretly. Why are her clothes so beautiful? And her clothes do need to be borrowed from her elder sister, and they still don't fit well. Every time she sees Tang Ruan Ruan, she feels resentful and doesn't want to admit that she is jealous of Tang Ruan Ruan. Ruan Ruan, why haven't you come to play with me recently? Hu Yuer reached out to grab Tang Ruan Ruan's hand, but was dodged by Tang Ruan Ruan. This is the first time. She couldn't help but freeze. I couldn't believe it as I looked at Tang Ruan Ruan, my eyes full of injuries. Tang Ruan Ruan tidied up her hair and said with a dry smile, "Aren't you talking to Gu Zheshuan recently? I'm afraid it might delay you. You said you talked to Gu Zheshuan about your relationship, why don't you tell us? Can we still not bless you?" Next to Su Xiu'er, Hu Yuer exclaimed in surprise, "Did you actually get involved with Gu Zheshuan?" A few days ago, Zhao Hu and his team asked Gu Zheshuan if he had a conversation partner, and he said he didn't. What's wrong with you? You were tricked by Gu Zheshuan. If it weren't for Su Xiu'er's obvious schadenfreude, Hu Yuer would have really thought she was caring about herself. In my heart, I cursed Su Xiu'er, this troublemaker, why is she everywhere? An awkward smile appeared on her face. Ruan Ruan, who did you hear? I didn't talk to Gu Zheshuan about a partner, how could I talk to him about a partner? I heard he was talking to you about a partner. He came to your house a few days ago, isn't it about getting engaged? When Hu Yuer said these words, her heart was sore. Although it was her who was talking to her, Gu Zheshuan told her that she wanted to get engaged to Tang Ruan Ruan. She wished she could tear Tang Ruan Ruan's face, but because Gu Zheshuan told her that only by getting engaged to Tang Ruan Ruan can she secure a spot in the hospital. As long as the operation was done properly, she could stay and let Tang Ruan Ruan go to the countryside. For this matter, she dare not see Gu Zheshuan during this period. She couldn't bear it anymore, so she came to find Tang Ruan Ruan to test it out. Tang Ruan Ruan watched Hu Yuer talking to herself over there. She indeed knows all of this. Do Gu Zheshuan's parents know that you are talking about a partner? Tang Ruan Ruan did not follow Hu Yuer's words, but asked a question that almost made Hu Yuer curse her mother. When it comes to Gu Zheshuan's mother, the devout old lady looks down on her in various ways and will definitely not agree to the two of them being together. Her face stiffened and she tried to maintain her expression, afraid that someone might not control her well and be laughed at by Tang Ruan Ruan. Ruan Ruan, what are you talking about? I didn't talk to Gu Zheshuan. You are still not my good sisters. Why are you always thinking about destroying my reputation? Hu Yuer pretended to be angry and asked. Tang Ruan Ruan smiled. Good sisters. Are you sure you are a good sisters with me? Then you and Gu Zheshuan are sleeping together, but you encourage him to make an engagement with me. Do you treat me as a sisters? Don't take the cute little one with the same name too seriously, don't get excited. When you get excited, you'll have to wear a book. I just started, and you don't know what the ending will be like. How uncomfortable it is. I feel that some readers in other books have told me to stop reading because their names are the same as those of the female lead. I just want to say that it's difficult not to duplicate the names, right? My body is feeling a bit uncomfortable, and I have a severe headache. I will wait until I get up in the next chapter to check. End of this chapter.